So I come from a long line of Jewish women who have all married goys. For those of you who don't know what a goy is, it's a man who is not Jewish in Hebrew. My grandmother married a goy, my mother married a goy, I married a goy, my sister married a goy, my two nieces married goys. Some family traditions never change. Now, for my sister and I and my nieces, it wasn't a problem. My parents weren't religious. They didn't care if we married a Jew or not. A lawyer, maybe, a doctor would have been nice, but a Jew, they didn't mind. They didn't care. Now, for my grandmother, it was a little bit more difficult. She was born in Russia to a very strict Jewish family. And when they immigrated to Philadelphia around the turn of the century, she quickly fell in love with another Russian immigrant, but he was a goy, and she knew her family would not accept him. So she and my grandfather-to-be conspired to find a rabbi that they could bribe to attest that he was circumcised. Back then, if you were circumcised, that meant you were Jewish, and that was one change my grandfather was not willing to go through. So they gave the rabbi $10. He said, my grandfather is circumcised. They got married. All was good. Nobody ever knew their secret. But my grandmother had a much bigger secret, a much deeper secret that she never told anybody in her family. When she was young back in Russia, her grandfather, my great-grandfather, was dying, and he called her to his deathbed, and he leaned over and whispered in her ear. He said, I am not Jewish. He said he'd been born to a gypsy family, and that as a child, his gypsy parents sold him to a wealthy Jewish family. He was raised as a Jew and became the patriarch of my Jewish family. Now, when I was young and my mom told me this story, I was skeptical. I couldn't believe we had gypsy blood in our veins. My mother, however, not only believed it, but she felt that gypsy blood. I remember one time when I was young, my mom came into her living room and she was rubbing her neck in pain. I said, Mom, what happened? She said, I was at my desk reading, and I could feel the presence of my dead father over my shoulder, and so she kept her neck tilted like that so she could enjoy the warmth of his presence. My mom really felt that gypsy blood. Another time when I was in high school, I missed the school bus coming home, and I needed to call my mom to pick me up, but this was the era before cell phones, and I had to find a payphone, but I didn't have any money. So I decided to walk to a local store where a lot of the high school kids would hang out to see if I could borrow a dime. And I had to cross the football field to get to the store. And as I'm walking over this giant football field, at one point I just happened to look down, and sure enough, next to my foot is a shiny silver dime. So I pick it up, I go to the store, I call my mom, and I say, Mom, you won't believe it. I'm walking across this football field, and I just happen to look down, and I see the dime enough that I can call you. And my mother, without skipping a beat, said, oh, that was your grandmother looking out for you, making sure you got home safe. Of course, my grandmother had been dead for 10 years, but my mother truly felt that gypsy blood. Years later, my mother was traveling to Eastern Europe to visit some of the former Soviet republics, and they were stopping in Azerbaijan. And the head of the group told my mother, don't go out into the town square because there are gypsies there and they'll pickpocket you. Well, this was exactly what my mother needed to hear to decide she was going into the town square by herself. And sure enough, very quickly, a group of gypsies come up to her and surround her, and the head gypsy walks up to her and quickly turns around to the other gypsies and says, don't touch her. Look into her eyes. She's one of us. Now, when my mother came back and told me this story, I was still skeptical. I just couldn't believe we had gypsy blood in our veins. It's been 1 year, 1 month, and 1 week to this day that my mother died. And since that time, I have been waiting for that gypsy blood to kick in. I've been waiting to feel my mother's presence over my shoulder, or to know that she's looking out for me, making sure I'm going to be okay. And it hasn't happened yet. But every morning when I wake up, and I walk into the bathroom, and I see myself in the mirror, I look into her eyes, and I know she is one with me, and I know that will never change. Thank you.